There is one part of your body that no other creature has ever had. Not one in the entire fossil record. So, take a guess. Opposable thumbs? Chimps have those. Tool use? Crows, octopuses, otters, and elephants have all been recorded using objects as tools. Communication? Bees, whales, dolphins, and prairie dogs all have social calls we've documented. Walking upright? Birds beat us to it by 150 million years. The answer is your chin. Reach up and feel it.
Huh?
That little shelf of bone on the bottom of your face, the part that sticks out further than your teeth do. Nothing else has ever grown one. Not chimpanzees, not gorillas, and not Neanderthals or Denisovans or any of the extinct human cousins we've pulled out of the ground. In the whole fossil record, that bump shows up exactly once, and it's on us. Which leads to a pretty simple question. What is it for? For over 100 years, some of the best anatomists alive have tried to answer that, and all of them have come up short. Every explanation they built sounds reasonable until you look closely, and then it stops working. The oldest of those explanations is chewing. Your lower jaw is one bone called the mandible, and the two halves of it meet at the front, right behind your chin. The thinking was that our ancestors needed a strong jaw, so extra bone built up at that joint to brace it against the force of biting down. It's a clean idea, and it was the leading explanation for decades. The problem is that the chin doesn't brace your jaw. It actually makes things a little worse. When you bite down hard, your lower jaw does something similar to a wishbone. The two sides get pulled apart at the front. That's the exact stress a brace would need to fight. But pushing bone forward at the chin makes that pulling stronger, not weaker. The further the front of your jaw sticks out, the more bending force builds up across it. So the most popular theory for a century isn't just missing evidence. It has evidence pointing the other way. If the chin were built for chewing, it would be a bad design. The second explanation is speech, and the thinking behind it is better. Language is unique to us, and so is the chin. Both showed up around the same stretch of time, so it's hard not to connect them. The usual version goes like this. Talking meant the tongue and the muscles under the jaw had to move around, and the bone at the front changed to make room. People have believed this for a long time. Theodore Roosevelt, the president, wrote a magazine article about human origins where he called an early human ancestor a chinless being, said his jaw was so primitive it must have ruined his speech, and added that he could only be called human with a certain largeness. So that's a former head of state, in print, insulting a fossil's jawline. Anyway, the speech idea has a timing problem. Your chin already exists before you're born. It starts forming around 11 weeks into pregnancy. That's before you have teeth, before you've eaten anything, and before you've made a single sound. Every force these theories rely on, whether that's chewing pressure or the movements of speech or the demands of adult food, none of it has happened yet. The chin is already forming in a baby that has never used its jaw for anything at all. Something that shows up at 11 weeks can't be a response to adult chewing or adult talking, because neither one exists yet. There's a smaller version of the same problem too. Kids learn to talk just fine with mouths much smaller than an adult's. If the chin were really about making room for speech, that probably shouldn't work as well as it does. The third explanation is the one that sounds the most modern, and it's sexual selection. The idea is that chin shape became a signal. A strong jawline looks healthy, healthy people get chosen as partners, and over time the trait spreads. It's appealing because the chin doesn't have to do anything useful, it just has to look good. That idea runs into trouble as soon as you look at a map, because chin shape varies a lot between human populations around the world. If everybody were selecting for one ideal chin, you'd expect to see the same shape everywhere. You don't get that, you get variation, which means either every culture wanted something different, or attraction wasn't what drove this. There's a simpler objection too. Most mating signals in nature are obvious. They're bright, or loud, or impossible to miss. This one is a piece of bone sitting under skin, muscle, fat, and pretty often a beard. Then there's the detail that quietly hurts every one of these theories. Plenty of people alive right now barely have a chin at all. The feature we use to identify our own species in the fossil record isn't even reliably present in the species, which isn't really what you'd expect from something carefully shaped by evolution. Quick one before we get to the answer. If you've got a theory of your own at this point, put it in the comments. I want to see what people come up with. And if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe. Some very old jaws complicate this, and they make the real answer clearer. If you look closely at them, you can find faint traces of the pieces that make up a chin. There's a hint of the central ridge on a jaw over 1 million years old, and a slight bump at the base on at least one Neanderthal. These aren't chins, but they aren't nothing either. The parts already existed. They were just spread across jaws built differently overall, on a lower jaw that sloped backwards, surrounded by bigger teeth, on a face that stuck out further. That changes the question. It isn't how humans invented a chin out of nowhere. It's what pushed those existing parts into a new arrangement. One explanation has been around for about 100 years, and it works like this. The chin isn't something that grew forward. It's what got left behind when everything around it shrank. The part of your jaw that holds your teeth got smaller. Human teeth shrank. Faces flattened out. And the whole front of the face pulled back underneath the brain case. But the bottom edge of the jaw didn't pull back at the same speed. So your chin sticks out not because it moved forward, but because everything above it moved back. Stephen Jay Gould ran into this idea in the 1970s, and it gave him trouble. He was arguing that humans are basically juvenile apes, that we keep baby features into adulthood. Flat face, round skull, small jaw, growth slowed down. The chin breaks that argument because your chin sticks out further than any ape's does. That isn't slowed growth at all, that's something extra. His fix was clever. The chin slowed down too, it just slowed down less than the tooth-holding part above it. Everything shrank, the top shrank faster, and what's left poking out is your chin. That works, and it immediately raises a bigger question he never answered. Why would two halves of the same bone slow down at different speeds? That's the question recent research has been working on, and the answer that came out of it isn't really about your jaw at all, it's about your throat. And it starts with the fact that you stand up. Walking upright is called bipedalism, and it changed a lot more than our legs and hips. It changed the angle between the skull and the spine, pulled the face back under the brain case, and repositioned the whole neck, which also made the space at the back of the throat tighter. This is where the fetus matters. A fetus practices. It rehearses breathing and swallowing in the womb long before it needs either one, because that's how the lungs and the gut get built. But that practice needs an airway that stays open, and the upright build our species inherited had already crowded it. So the bottom of the jaw grows forward faster than the top. It has to, because that's what keeps the airway open and gives the tongue somewhere to sit. The chin isn't really doing a job of its own, it's actually just the extra room the jaw had to make. A 2026 study tested this directly. Researchers compared how jaws changed across apes and humans, then checked that pattern against what you'd expect from random chance, from direct selection, and from a side effect. The side effect explanation fit best. The chin looks like a byproduct of evolution acting on other things, mainly smaller front teeth, and the skull changes that came with walking upright. That's the best supported answer we have, not a proven one. It could still change, but it explains something the other theories never could, which is Neanderthals. They didn't lack chins because they were more primitive than us. Their teeth were bigger, and their faces stuck out further, so the crowding that produced our chin never happened to them. There was no space problem, so there was no fix. We didn't gain something they were missing, we ran into a problem they never had. The chin also has a structure to it, and that structure is what scientists use in practice. There's a raised ridge running down the middle and two bumps spread apart at the base, and together they form a shape like an upside-down T. Find that upside-down T on a fossil jaw and you've found a modern human. It's the one feature with no match anywhere else in the primate record. We use it to define our entire species, and as far as anyone can tell, it's there to keep an airway open. So here's the answer. Your chin is not for chewing. It's in the wrong spot to help with that, and it actually makes the bending worse. It's not for speech either. It's already forming at 11 weeks before you can eat or talk. And it's probably not about attraction because chin shape is different in different populations, and it's mostly hidden under skin anyway. What the evidence points to is that this all started when our ancestors stood upright, which changed the angle of the skull and left less room at the back of the throat. Around the same time, our front teeth were getting smaller, so the bottom of the jaw ended up growing forward to keep that airway open. Your chin is what was left over once both of those things happened, which means it isn't really for anything at all. Evolution was busy solving a different problem and the chin just came along for the ride. People have been asking about this since the first century. It turns out the answer was never about the chin at all. So, which one had you, chewing or speech? Drop it in the comments, I want to see which theory wins. Thanks for hanging out for 10 minutes on a bone nobody can explain. Have a good one.